You believe you're in control of your life. What if that belief itself is an illusion? Before you decide, before you feel confident or afraid, before you say yes or no, your brain has already chosen for you. Neuroscience reveals that your brain makes decisions seconds before you become consciously aware of them, meaning your sense of free will often arrives late to the action. Your brain is not designed to make you happy or fulfilled. It is designed to keep you safe, conserve energy, and repeat what feels familiar if it's harmful. That's why you procrastinate, scroll endlessly, repeat the same mistakes, and stay stuck in patterns you swear you want to escape. Fear, doubt, anxiety, and hesitation aren't personal flaws. They are survival programs, running silently in the background. The most dangerous part isn't that your brain controls you, it's that it never tells you when it does. You think your problem is lack of discipline, lack of motivation, or lack of willpower, but that's exactly what your brain wants you to believe. Because the truth is far more unsettling. Your brain has learned how to keep you trapped using dopamine, the same chemical that once helped humans survive and now quietly controls modern life. Every notification, every scroll, every short video, every like, every tiny hit of pleasure is not designed to satisfy you, but to keep you wanting more. Because dopamine is not the chemical of happiness, it's the chemical of anticipation. Your brain doesn't reward you for achieving goals. It rewards you for chasing them, which is why finishing something feels empty, while starting something new feels exciting. This is why you can scroll for hours and still feel bored. Why motivation disappears the moment real effort begins, and why comfort always wins over growth. Your brain has learned that instant rewards require less energy than long-term progress. So it pushes you towards stimulation instead of purpose, distraction instead of focus, and pleasure instead of meaning. And here's the part most people never realize. The more dopamine spikes you experience from easy sources, the harder it becomes to feel motivated by normal life. Work feels heavy, goals feel distant, and silence feels unbearable. You're not lazy. Your reward system has been hijacked. Modern technology didn't create this weakness. It discovered it, optimized it, and feeds it constantly. Your brain now expects reward without effort, novelty without patience, and pleasure without progress. And when real life can't compete, it labels that discomfort as boredom, anxiety, or depression. The trap is subtle, because it feels like choice. You choose to check your phone, you choose to delay, you choose to quit. But those choices are being guided by a system that has learned exactly how to pull your attention, drain your focus, and keep you looping in familiar behavior. And the most dangerous consequence isn't lost time, it's lost direction. When dopamine runs your life, you stop building a future and start chasing moments, mistaking stimulation for fulfillment and movement for progress, all while wondering why nothing ever truly changes. You've been taught to see fear as a weakness, anxiety as a flaw, and overthinking as something broken inside you. But what if none of that is true? What if fear isn't stopping you from living, but quietly deciding how you live? Fear doesn't appear randomly. It is generated by your brain long before conscious thought, triggered by patterns from your past, and projected into your future as a warning system that rarely updates itself. Your brain does not ask whether the danger is real, it only asks whether it feels familiar, which is why rejection feels like threat, uncertainty feels like risk, and growth feels unsafe. Anxiety is not a malfunction. It is your brain's attempt to predict pain before it happens, even if that pain no longer exists. This is why your heart races during harmless situations, why confidence disappears right before opportunity, and why you retreat at the exact moment you should move forward. Your brain would rather you stay stuck than exposed, invisible than judged, average than vulnerable, because survival systems were never designed for modern ambition or meaning. And the cruel irony is that the very sensations you try to escape, fear, tension, discomfort, are the signals that you're stepping outside old mental boundaries, yet your brain labels them as danger to pull you back into safety. Over time, this creates a life built not on desire, but on avoidance, where decisions are made based on what feels least threatening instead of what matters most. You don't fail because you lack courage. You hesitate because your brain confuses emotional discomfort with physical danger, convincing you that staying the same is safer than becoming more. And the most dangerous part is this: when fear runs silently in the background, you don't feel controlled. You feel reasonable, cautious, and responsible, never realizing that your life is being shaped by a system designed to protect a version of you that no longer exists. You don't just live inside your habits, you live inside a story your brain tells about who you are. And once that story is formed, your brain will protect it more aggressively than it protects your happiness. Your identity feels personal, fixed, and real, but in reality, it's a mental construction built from past experiences, repeated emotions, social labels, failures, compliments, and moments of shame or pride, all woven together into a narrative that quietly says, "This is who I am, and this is who I'm not." Once that identity settles, your brain treats any challenge to it as a threat to survival, which is why change feels uncomfortable even when it's positive. If you see yourself as someone who lacks discipline, your brain resists structure. If you see yourself as anxious, your brain manufactures fear on demand. If you see yourself as unlucky, unconfident, or always falling behind, your brain will unconsciously steer you toward choices that confirm that belief. Not because it's true, but because consistency feels safer than contradiction. This is self-sabotage at its core, not a lack of willpower, but a system designed to defend a familiar self. The ego is not confidence. It's a psychological shield that filters reality, downplays opportunities, exaggerates risks, and rewrites failures, so your identity remains untouched. Even success can feel wrong when it doesn't match the person you believe you are, which is why people retreat after breakthroughs, abandon progress just as momentum builds, and return to old patterns after moments of clarity. Your brain would rather you stay predictable than powerful, known than transformed, because becoming someone new creates uncertainty, and uncertainty feels dangerous to a mind designed for survival. Over time, this creates an invisible ceiling where you don't consciously refuse growth. You simply feel tired, distracted, doubtful, or unmotivated whenever growth demands a new version of you. And until you recognize that your identity is not who you are, but something your brain constructed to make sense of the past, it will continue to quietly control your future by pulling you back into the comfort of being the person you already recognize, even if that person no longer serves you. If your brain has been quietly controlling your thoughts, your habits, your fears, your identity, and even your perception of reality, the real question isn't how to fight it, because that battle is unwinnable, but how to stop being invisible to yourself. Awareness is not about motivation, positivity, or brute willpower. It's the moment you start noticing a thought before you act on it, observing an urge without following it, and feeling fear without letting it dictate your next move. This is the point where the illusion of control begins to crack. When you observe your mind instead of merging with it, the automatic systems lose their authority. The compulsive urge to check your phone, to scroll endlessly, to react without thought, begins to weaken the moment you recognize it as a predictable pattern rather than a command. Anxiety, panic, and doubt lose their grip. You see them as predictions generated by old experiences, not truths about the present. Your brain will still try to convince you that resistance is dangerous, that stillness is scary, and that silence equals weakness. But the moment you slow down and witness these processes, you realize they are just programs, not orders. Awareness creates distance, and distance creates the space where choice is possible. The gap between stimulus and silent fraction of a second, you can peek a doorway to freedom, because, for the first time, you can consciously decide whether to follow the brain's old scripts or step into a new story of your life. Every habit, every fear, every urge, every distraction that once seemed unstoppable becomes visible, intelligible, and ultimately manageable. You begin to see patterns in your own behavior, you never noticed, the invisible threads that have shaped your decisions for years, decades even. And suddenly, you realize that being trapped was never about failure, was about being unaware. And once you become aware, the brain's power over you doesn't disappear immediately, but it diminishes with every moment you witness without reacting, every thought you observe without obeying, and every impulse you feel without surrendering to it. Awareness is the first step toward reclaiming the life that has always been yours, hidden behind layers of autopilot, habit, and subconscious programming. This is where real freedom begins, not when your brain stops producing fear, urges, or distractions, but when you stop mistaking them for commands, when you no longer believe that every instinct, every hesitation, every emotional spike is a message you must obey. Your brain will still generate resistance when you attempt growth, still offer comfort when discomfort is required, still replay old stories when new chapters are waiting. But the difference now is that you can see it happening, and seeing it is the beginning of choice. Control doesn't vanish overnight, but it weakens every time you choose observation over reaction, intention over autopilot, patience over impulsivity, and awareness over assumption. The brain learns not from empty promises, but from what you consistently notice and act upon. It adapts slowly, concedes authority when you repeatedly refuse to follow its old patterns. And here is the final, almost paradoxical truth. Your brain is not your enemy, but it is not your master either. It is a powerful tool, forged to protect, to survive, to anticipate, and to predict. But it was never meant to define who you are or dictate who you can become. Awareness doesn't destroy the brain's systems, it illuminates them. And illumination is more dangerous than force, because a program that relies on secrecy loses control once it's exposed. When you finally see your fears, your doubts, your habits, your identity scripts, and your emotional loops for what they really are, simply processes designed for survival rather than fulfillment, you no longer need to obey them. Step by step, moment by moment, you reclaim decision-making from autopilot. You begin to live intentionally rather than reactively, and the ultimate realization hits. The brain is powerful, yes, but power without consciousness is imprisonment, and consciousness without action is wasted potential. Awareness is the key, but only through consistent, courageous observation do you unlock freedom, choice, and a life you actually direct. This channel exists to sharpen that awareness, to teach you how to see the invisible, anticipate the unseen, and reclaim your mind before it quietly decides your life for you. Because the moment you understand the brain, you stop being a victim of it, and that is where true choice, growth, and control finally begin.